Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and today I am bringing you through another song through our journey into the wild. This one is called Money Talk.
Money talks to me.
Wait a minute, that is the wrong band? That's what I get for taking a day off, guys. You know, I don't do a Wednesday show on this podcast. I do a different podcast on that day, and then it just messes me up when I come back for the Thursday show. Let's hear Money Talk by Uriah Heep. Well, there's no warm-up here. Just goes right into would you call it a riff or a progression on this? I'm not really sure a riff is the right term. It just feels like a short progression that repeats. And it's cool, though. I like the feel of it. It's kind of intriguing. Makes me wonder where the song is going to go. It doesn't really give me a lot of clues as to where we're headed. And I like that. I like a little bit of mystery in the beginning of a song. Sometimes you kind of get, like, other than bridges and things, you get a sense of the song sometimes just right from the opening and they don't really change a whole lot. But when you have something like this, it's just like, hey, here's some sounds, it's a progression. I like that. I'm very curious to see what happens.
Dress right to please the crowd. All eyes can see by the way you walk, watching you dance around. Heaven lies down, see the money talk.
I really like songs like this because they're ones that you can listen to over and over again and still pick out something you didn't quite hear because your attention is being focused in a lot of different places. There's the main part that we're talking about. Then the vocals come in. Wait a minute, what did Mick just do? Well, wait a minute, what did Trevor just do? There's a lot of different parts here. And I think that's really cool. I like that. It also leaves a lot of open space for the vocals to come through and for these individual instruments when they take their time to really cut through and not be encumbered by a whole lot of other things.
Kiss her in picture books, watching her moves like a hungry hawk. Streets full of dirty looks. Heaven lies down for the money talk.
I am really digging the return of the Hammond, it being more prominent in the songwriting and in the performance. Love that little oscillation at the end there from Phil. That's always fun. But the sound of it is just so powerful, and it mixes so well with Mick's guitar that it's just like the perfect blend for this band. So it's really nice to see the return of that in a more upfront fashion than we have in the past since Ken left. That was a good vocal part in that last section. I really like that. Something really different. We haven't quite heard that before. So that was a nice surprise. But this song is really intriguing because it just keeps going in different directions. There's so many dynamics to listen to. If you listen especially to what the instruments were playing while Mick was hitting that higher note, was really nice. There's a lot of stuff going on that you're not hearing until you start separating it out. And same for me. I didn't notice some of that stuff, and maybe they weren't playing it on the other parts, but that I have to think they were. Very cool, though. I really like it. I like the combination of that. The organ with that higher guitar note sounded really well, too. Phil's actually really busy on this song, but it's got a good solid beat to it, and it just a nice tempo and a lot of power in this song. And I have to say, despite my feeling on this album about the bass being a little bit loud in some spots, I have to say this is one of their best sounding albums up to this point. I think we tend to get a little bit nostalgic for things that are, they hold those memories for us. You think about, Very Heavy, Very Humble. You think about Look at Yourself or Demons and Wizards or whatever album it is, or albums that have those special memories for you, right? And we just don't think about the quality of the thing that we're listening to. We just say, this is what it is. We kind of take it for granted. But then when you actually step out of that and you let all that go and you really look at it, yes, those albums were mixed very well. There was that whole middle section of Uriah Heep where I didn't think the mixes were as good as they could have been, mainly the panning of it. But I have to say that Demons and Wizards had a good mix. This has a great mix. The overall sound and production, and granted, we're talking years later, we're talking different technology, different recording techniques, better equipment. So I'm not trashing anything here, but I will say that this is one of the best sounding Uriah Heep albums I think we've had to date. But don't get me wrong, I love the sound of those other albums, but I have to think part of it is the nostalgia of it as well as the enjoyment of it. And I think we tend to get away from that. I hear people saying all the time, this is better than that or whatever. And it's not necessarily a musical thing, because how do you say one thing is better musically than something else? That really comes down to taste. Some people like guitar players that play at 1,000 miles an hour. For me, that does absolutely nothing. So for me, is a song with a guitar player like that going to be better than a guitar player, say, like Mick, who plays for the song? Probably not. But for a person who loves that kind of shredding guitar, their song might be better to them, so it's all subjective. But one thing that I can say is that of all these things, I don't hear people talking about the mixes a lot, except for the recent resurgence of, since Peter Golby's been doing interviews talking about the albums that he worked on. But I think a lot of it is that nostalgia. And I think that this mix, this clarity, the overall balance of everything, it's got to be the best that I've heard so far. Although I will say those older albums did have really good mixes, especially Demons and Wizards, Magician's Birthday, Sweet Freedom. But there was always just something like the drum wasn't coming, like the bass drum wasn't coming through enough. The snare was a little bit weak. I couldn't really hear the toms, or the organ was a little too much in the foreground, or whatever it would be. With this, I could pretty much hear everything, and I think that's a really cool thing to be able to hear the band in full form, going with full power, and just having that clarity in the sound where we can hear and appreciate everything that's going on. It's interesting. It just occurred to me in thinking back on the other 3 songs that we've done on this album. I'd have to go back and listen specifically for this again, but I'm not hearing a lot of those classic Uriah Heep transitions between parts. They're just kind of, here's this section, here's that section, and they cut together very well. There's really not necessarily a need for transitions, but they're, I'm so used to them with this band, it kind of feels like I'm missing them a little bit. But again, they're certainly not necessary. These parts fit so seamlessly together that I don't think you have to have them. Okay, that was pretty badass. Let's just say that was badass. Very progressive. I loved it. I love the sound of it. Russell's playing on that too was especially fantastic. It's interesting to hear. Certainly not any overdubs or anything there, but you could hear when he's playing on the crash cymbal, and then you can hear where he stops because he's moving his stick away to do a fill. And it's really interesting the wash of sound that you get. Like all of a sudden there's a little bit of clarity, then it goes back and there's like another wash of sound when he starts going back to the crash cymbal. I think that's just a fascinating thing to listen to and hear how the dynamics of the rest of the instruments change when he changes what he's playing. Certainly the band has gotten more progressive again since he's joined. I think it was pretty obvious that was an influence from him, or maybe that's just what he inspired in them. I don't know, but in any case, it's become more present since his joining the band. But I love this. I love the sound of what I'm hearing. That was a great part. Very unexpected, but very happily accepted.
Crowd. All eyes can see by the way she walks, watching her dance around. Heaven lies down to the money talk. Down for the money. Down for the money. Down for the money. Down for the money.
I would be curious if there's any drummers or anyone out there that's counting this. I'm counting this in 7. It feels like 7 to me. It's definitely interesting. It's a real departure to build on the part that I was so excited about before. But really, this whole song has been a build. I've heard Phil just kind of adding things here and there as the song has gone on, making it sound a little bit bigger when it already started off with a pretty big sound. So it's interesting how he's been able to layer that in and make the song sound a little bit richer. This is a really cool part. You know, it's the kind of part that a drummer loves because they can kind of go off a little bit more. They don't have to worry about, you know, vocals coming in or leading into a vocal track and playing something that's maybe a little bit more subtle. You can really go off if you want to, you know, if that's the direction that the song wants to go in. And you know, for me, these were always kind of my favorite songs to play when I had the opportunity to do that. How about Russell Gilbrook putting on a drum clinic in this song? Some fantastic playing. That guy has got some serious energy from like the first 5 seconds of talking to him when I first met him. I could tell the guy's just bursting with energy. I love it. Some fantastic playing in this song for sure. His drums sound great though too. And that's the thing, like I was talking about the sound of the other albums and thinking about a couple albums I mentioned that I could barely hear Lee Kerslake's toms. And if we had a mix like that on an album like this, there would be no power in these songs. I mean, none at all. The mix is so important. The recording and the mix, I should say, are so important because you can only fix so much. I know that a lot of times people say, well, we'll just fix this in post. We'll fix it in the mix. No, do everything you can to get the best recording possible so that you have the least amount of things to fix later. It's just too easy to get caught, hoping that you can fix something that layer upon layer of mistakes or bad decisions you really can't fix, and then you're left with an awful recording. But this album was just done so well. I love the sound of it. I like it even better than Wake the Sleeper, which I thought was really good. There's just a magic and a warmth in this album. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but it's something that I'm definitely feeling in the mix and I'm hearing. I think that this song in particular is intriguing because the riff not being a riff, that end part there that we heard, really kind of ominous. It felt like it had a dark tone to it, which I liked. Very different, very unexpected, but that's how many times have I said it? That's what this band is all about. Whenever you think you know what they're doing, nope, they do something different. And they're very creative. They play so well together. This lineup obviously is pretty comfortable playing and working together. But at the end of the day, we're just treated to some really great music. And I really had fun with this one. I hope that you guys did too. It's a cool song. And you know what? We'll be back with another song on tomorrow's episode, the Friday episode of the podcast. And you know what? I'm ready. Some of you might know what that means. We'll see you tomorrow, guys. Have a great day. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!